Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm going to compare the financial ratio between both of these companies that we already chosen, which is PBB Group Berhad and Nestle Berhad. We are using the cross-sectional analysis to compare this financial ratio. As far as we know, both of these company, they are already listed in the main market of Bursa Malaysia. Firstly, for the PBB company, this company is engaged in business of property investment and also investment holding. It also runs for grains and agri-businesses such as flour milling. They are also aiming for consumer product, which is they will be distributing the edible oils to their own retailers. For the Nestle Berhad, so basically this company is a Malaysian-based nutrition and also a wellness company. They are usually engaged in food and beverages. As we know, we always consume Nestle product in our daily lives such as Milo, Horlick, ice cream, yogurt and also instant coffee. So these are a little bit of explanation regarding the background of those companies that we already chosen.
Okay, so now we move to the next subtopic, which is financial ratio analysis. Okay, for the first one is profitability ratio. Okay, so as we can see from this bar graph, gross profit ratios Nestle is 37.58%. Okay, which means that every 1 ringgit of revenue earned by the firm, its cost of sales amounts to RM0.03758 cent. Meanwhile, for PPB has 13.45% only. Okay, so as a conclusion, the Nestle has higher gross profit margin than PPB. This means that Nestle is better at controlling the cost of its stocks and the manufacturing of its products. Okay, next is the net profit margin. Okay, based on the calculation on this bar graph, Nestle's net profit margin is 15.87%. Okay, while the PPB's net profit margin is 27.15%. Okay, hence it may be interpreted that for every 1 ringgit of revenue that Nestle earns, it earns a net profit of 0.1587 cent, while PPB earns a net profit before tax 0.2715 cent only. Okay, as a conclusion, Nestle has earned lower net profit margin than PPB. Okay, for the next ratio is liquidity ratio. Okay, first is current ratio. The current ratio for the Nestle is 0.65. Okay, the results indicate that for every 1 ringgit of current liabilities that Nestle has, it has 65 cents worth of current assets. Okay, since their current ratio is below 1, so the Nestle may have difficulties to pay its liabilities on time. Okay, while PPB's is 2.09 current ratio. Okay, that means that have more than 1, so the firm will be easier to pay its liabilities on time. Okay, so the PPB has higher and better current ratio compared to the Nestle. Okay, it indicates safe liquidity for PPB. The second is acid test ratio. Okay, as we can see that the Nestle's acid test ratio is 0.32 and then PPB's acid test ratio is 2.16. Okay, and the PPB acid test ratio is higher than Nestle. Okay, so the PPB is better than Nestle because the PPB is not be relying too much on inventories or other assets to pay its short-term liabilities. Okay, the third is the inventory turnover ratio. Okay, then from this bar graph, the Nestle's inventory turnover ratio is 6.24, while the PPB's inventory turnover ratio is 5.05. For the Nestle, this means that on average, the inventories purchased and sold by Nestle need to be replenished 6.24 times a year. From this, we can conclude that Nestle is better than PPB because there is high demand for Nestle's inventories. The next is account receivable turnover ratio. Okay, as you can see from this bar graph, the account receivable of Nestle roll over 14.91 times in a year. Okay, while account receivable for PPB are roll over 5.84 times in a year. Okay, so as a conclusion, the Nestle and a high receivable turnover ratio that can be indicate that Nestle's collection of account receivable is efficient. Account payable turnover ratio. Okay, so the account payable for the Nestle is roll over 3.50 times in a year, which means it is being settled by the firm on average 3.50 times in a year. Okay, based on existing trade creditors balance. Okay, while for PPB, the account payables are rolled over 6.06 times in a year, based on existing trade creditors balance. Okay, so as a conclusion, PPP company earn a higher account payable turnover ratio than Nestle, making PPP paying its supplier and short-term debt. The next is stock turnover days. Okay, based on the table, it shows that the Nestle takes 58.47 days to sell its stock of goods, while PPB takes 72.26 days. Okay, thus we can see that Nestle can sell its inventory faster than PPB. Now, the account receivable turnover days. Okay, using this bar graph, on average, it shows that Nestle takes 24.48 days to collect the amount due from its trade debtors in account receivable. Okay, meanwhile, for PPB, takes 62.48 days. So, as a conclusion, Nestle's customer on average take 24.48 days only to pay their receivable, shorter than PPB's customers. For the last ratio in the liquidity ratio, which is account payable turnover days. Okay, using this bar graph, it indicates that Nestle takes 104.22 days to pay its trade creditors in account payables. Okay, meanwhile, PPB only takes 60.25 days. Okay, so the PPB company took shorter time to pay its trade creditors in account payables compared to the Nestle.
Assalamualaikum and hi. Next, I will be presenting about the leverage ratio. Leverage ratio analyzes how a firm is being financed and whether a firm is able to meet its interest expenses. Leverage ratios include debt ratio and interest cover ratio. Debt ratio determines the ratio of liabilities and the assets of a firm, while interest cover ratio measures the extent to which the firm's earnings before interest and tax can meet interest expenses. Nestle company on December 2019 shows that they have a higher percentage, which is 0.76 or 76% compared to PPB company, which is 0.06 or 6%. However, both of the company ratios are less than 1. This explains that both firms are concerned and has more assets than liabilities. For interest cover ratio for Nestle company is 22.43 times, while PPB company is 37.61 times. This shows that PPB company has the higher interest cover ratio compared to Nestle that currently covers up to 37.61 times of its existing interest expense. Hence, there may still be room for additional borrowings to be made by the firm. However, both companies have interest coverage ratio that greater than 1.5 times. This indicates that the firms should be able to service its interest expense without any difficulty. In summaries, firms' degree of leverage is also taken as a measure of risk. Higher debt ratio of the firm, they may have a lot of liabilities relative to its assets. Efficiency ratios. Efficiency ratio measure the extent to which a firm is able to earn sufficient earnings and return to its investors. Earnings per share, return on capital employed, return on assets, return on equity, and return on ordinary equity are under efficiency ratios. Financial year ended 2019, for every one ordinary share held, shareholders of Nestle company have earned an 86.96 cent of income, which may either be distributed to ordinary shareholders as dividends or be kept in the firm as retained earnings but still belong to the ordinary shareholders. Meanwhile, PPB company have earned 81.02 cent of the income. Next, Nestle have a higher return on capital employed compared to PPB, which is 62.78%. A higher return on capital employed value indicates that a larger number of profits can be invested back into the company for the benefit of shareholders. The reinvested capital is applied again at a higher rate of return, which helps to produce higher earnings per share growth. If the percentage of return on capital employed increase, therefore it is a sign that the company grows successfully. Nestle company and PPB company are company that utilizes their assets by determining how profitable a company is relative to their total assets. As a conclusion, Nestle company is more profitable than the percentage shows because the percentage shows that this company earned 24.68%, which is a more efficient than PPB company that earned only 5.08%. Last but not least, Nestle have a higher number of percentage of return on ordinary equity, which is 169.32% compared to PPB. This shows that Nestle's management team is more efficient when it comes to utilizing investment financing to grow their business and more likely to provide a better return to its investors. The last financial ratio is market ratios. Market ratios are ratios that are based on the market price of a firm's share. Market ratios consist of price earning ratio and market to book ratio. Nestle shares currently sell off 0.51 times of its earning, which is higher than PPB price earnings ratio. Hence, Nestle are generally taken as a firm with bright future prospects. The next commonly used ratio is the market to book ratio. Both of the companies show that the value is more than 1. This maybe indicates that the managements have created value for its shareholders. Nestle's market to book ratio is 59.04, which is higher than PPB. This means that Nestle creates more value for their shareholders.
About the SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is an acronym which S stands for strength, W stands for weaknesses, O stands for opportunities, and T stands for threat. This SWOT analysis is used to identify the value of a certain company in these four terms that I have mentioned before. The first one is the strength. For Nestle company, the strength of the Nestle company is they are only focusing in making food product only, which is it is easy for them to monitor the management of their own company. While PPB company has a variety of businesses such as construction work and development of residential and also commercial property. Surely they will make a lot of profit in their businesses. Next, for the weaknesses, Nestle company, they have a hard time to deal with if there is a shortage of sources. They also have the same problem if there are the same problem in their own branches. Whereas for the PPB company, if inflation do happen, then they have to come up with a good strategies in order to make up for the other businesses that went down. Next, for the opportunity, for Nestle company, they have to make variety of food worldwide so that they will be favorable to many other retailers, and surely it will double their profits. While for the PPB company, they have to decide for one company only to handle and focus only one company, so it will be manageable for them, such as company A handles only food sectors and company B handles the other sectors. Lastly, for the threat, Nestle company, the threat for the Nestle company is that if there are insufficient sources, or they are only focusing in food sectors only, then their business might have stopped, and surely there will be end for them. While PPB company, if a pandemic happen like we are dealing with right now with COVID-19, then surely they have to find another way to run their businesses, such as online businesses. Then they will continue to run their business in what kind of situation they are in. I think that is all for my presentation. Thank you.
So, Based on the fundamental analysis in scope of earning per share (EPS), Nestle is higher than PPB. This earning data shows that PPB is healthy and aims for growth for next year. And the best is that they are succeeding for now. Notice that EPS of Nestle are very high compared to the stock price. This lead to the extremely low PE ratio. Means that the lower PE ratio, the more attractive the stock. A PB or market to book ratio of Nestle nearly 60. Nearly 60 is very high rather than PBB, which only 1.27. This means investors are currently paying nearly 60 times higher price for a Nestle, but share compared to the book value of the company. ROE, return on ordinary equity, ROE, Nestle Berhad is more efficient financially compared to the PPP, which is 169.62 for 169.32 for Nestle and 5.42 for PPB. The higher the ROE, the more efficient company is. In short, analyzing the financial proof that Nestle is more efficient to be invested rather than PPB. But if we take based on technical analysis, chart of Nestle in 2019 was being such way, while for PBB group in 2019 was not stable because at the initial of the year, price at the initial of the year, the price was bearish, but after half the year, the price become to sideway. At the initial of the year, the price was bullish, but after half of the year, the price become sideway. But at the end of the year, the price became bullish for a couple of days before come back to the bearish. Using the Ichimoku Cloud indicator, we can forecast that both company will be bearish for the next year because both company price stop enters the cloud, which is represented as the resistance when the price entry from the above. As we know that when the price entry the cloud, we can forecast that the price will be bearish. But for PBB, it tend to lose more investor quickly rather than Nestle Malaysia Berhad because the price stop at the end of the year PBB bearish quickly, while for the Nestle has a little time to make a new strategy during such way because during such way before the price stop breakout to be bearish or bullish for next year. So undoubtedly, Nestle is more efficient to be invested rather than PPB based on the technical analysis by using Ichimoku Cloud indicator. Then, based on the market structure and global issue, Nestle is more efficient to be invested rather than PPB because Nestle is focusing in the making of the food product only, while PPB not only food but also in grains and agribusiness, consumer product, film exhibition and distribution, environmental, engineering and utilities, property, investment in equities, and other operations. As we know that food is one of the components that human need to stay alive rather than other compliance such as watching the film. In the pandemic COVID-19, you can see that food is one of the essential components that need all by human without choosing any race, gender, poor or well people. So we can conclude here that when we are investing in the company that making a food product is more efficient than combination of variety of food or operation like PBB Group Berhad. PBB facing very hard to handle their company when one world attacked by pandemic virus, which is their business were harmed to operate as usual by the government like cinema. So when their business were harmed to operate directly, their revenue and earning also will be decreased. Honestly, Nestle one of the important company that should be in our mind when making a decision to invest because this company has many company branches in the world. Plus, when the company has a lot of company branches, we as professional financial team and also public people can conclude that the company are success because only a profitable and good financial operation company only can open more company branches in the world. So more company branches, more success and more money can make from the investment. So Nestle is our choice when we want to invest. That's all from us. Thank you.